Salvete discipuli. Welcome. Caput numerus unus, chapter 1, de tuo vocabulario, verba. That means about your vocabulary, verbs. Let's talk about verbs. So you may have noticed the dictionary entry of a verb looks like this. And this is common. This is the most common. You'll see 4 parts. So I've given you the exemplum, paro, parare, paravi, paratus, the verb for to prepare. Notice that I've highlighted in red each of the endings, the O, the RE, the I, and the US, because those are common. You are going to see them on most verbs. You'll see 4 parts, you'll see those endings, and you'll see the definition as to whatever. When you're taking quizzes for me, you want to put the definition down as to prepare or just simply prepare, as well as on your homeworks. So what does each of these 4 parts mean? Why do we have them, in other words? Well, each part means something slightly different. The first part of the verb, in this case is paro, they always end in O, okay? And that is present tense first person. So first person being I, present tense happening now. So it's I whatever. In this case, I prepare. The second part of the verb will always end in RE, and that's what's called the infinitive. And it's also how we define the word, and it always says to whatever. The third part of the verb will end in I, and it is also first person, but it is past tense. Specifically, it's a tense called perfect tense, but we'll talk about that later in the year. The last part of the verb, or the fourth part of the verb, is actually what we refer to commonly as a PPP, which means perfect passive participle. Now, that was pretty fancy sounding. You don't need to worry about all that. All you need to know is that this little part of the verb is pretty unique. It's going to end in a US, or in some dictionaries, it'll end in a UM, okay? And I don't care which one you put. The definition of it will always be having been whatevered with an ED, or just whatevered, in this case having been prepared or prepared. And here's the pattern, again, just another visual. I blank, present tense, right? To blank, I blanked, and having been blanked. Okay. Some exempla. You don't know this word, but it's nakare, meaning to kill. Now, as we know, this is the secundum, right? It's the second part of the verb. This one with the O is the first part, and because all of them have the O, and that means it says I kill. This one with the I is the third part. I know that because of the I, and it would say I killed, because they're all past tense. And this last one with the weird US ending is the having been killed. It's the strange definition, and that thing that's a participle. So if I gave you another word, could you tell me this? Could you tell me this pattern? Let's try. Here's legere, which means to read. But what part of the verb is legere? And which part would lego be? Legi and lectus. Do you know why? Take a second and see if you can pause and figure it out, and I'll give you the answers. Okay, hopefully you paused. Legere is the second part. It's also known as the infinitive, right? The Lego is the first part. I know this because it has the O, and it says I read because it's first person and it's present tense. Leggy has an I, which means it's the third part, and it's past tense. So it's also I, but it says I read. And then the last one with the funky US is the last part of the verb, the one that is called a participle, and it says having been read. Verbs in Latin belong to what are called conjugations. This is an important word. I'm going to refer to it. These are basically just families of verbs, and it's a way of helping us label and group them so that we understand them. What you need to do when looking at the dictionary entry is you need to look at the endings of the first word and the infinitive, and that'll tell you what conjugation a word is. And you're thinking, well, why is it important what family it's in? Well, that's going to come in important later when we look at characteristics of the verbs such as tense. So as you can tell, here are the families. There are technically 5. When we separate them this way, though, most of the time we don't say that. We just say there are 4 because notice we have third and then third IO. So how are these recognized? Well, that's the important part we're getting at here. First conjugation verbs, all first conjugation verbs are going to have an O ending here and just an O. There's no vowel before it, and they have an A-R-E. This A is really how you recognize them. So just look for that A before the R-E on the infinitive and you've got first. Second conjugation verbs have an E before this O, and that will always signal a second conjugation verb. They also have an E before the R-E. Third conjugation verbs, notice they just have an O again, no other vowel, and they have an E before the RE. So that's how they're different from second. They have no E before the O, but they do have an ERE. This is the hardest difference, familial difference that people have. They have a hard time remembering the difference between these two, so mark it and learn it well. Third IO has an IO, hence the name, and it has an ERE, just like third. Fourths all have an IO and an IRE. Really, for fourths, all you need to do is look here, and you'll be okay. So I'm going to put up some verbs, and I want you to pause again and see if you can recognize conjugation. I'll tell you the answer momentarily. Okay, let's look at our exercitium, or our exercise. By the way, see placket, remember, is please. Cado, cadere, it is third because it doesn't have an I or an E here, but it has an ERE there. Canto cantare is first. I know that because of that A. Dico decere, again, is third. We just have an O, and there's an ERE. Ferio ferire is fourth. I know that because of the I. Moneo, I don't even need to go any further, but monere is second because of that EO. And cupio, cupere, ooh, it has an IO, but it has an E here, so that makes it third IO. All right, that's all I got for you guys on this one. Walete.